Imagine acquiring literally limitless power, to the point where you actually start to forget you're even mortal. Well, let's just dive right into this explainer, because today we're traveling back to ancient Egypt. We're looking at an absolutely epic historical narrative where absolute arrogance meets ultimate divine retribution. It's a story that's echoed through millennia for a reason. It is a stark reminder of what happens when a human being acquires unmatched might, unimaginable wealth, and enforces profound systemic oppression.
I am God. Just think about the sheer audacity of saying that out loud. It's a chilling declaration from a mortal man, and it instantly drops us right into the peak of ancient Egypt's glory and the incredibly dangerous hubris of its ruler. The source material paints the super vivid picture of a civilization where wealth just flowed as freely as the waters of the Nile. I mean, markets full of rare fragrances, fields yielding golden harvests, the whole shebang. But beneath all that glittering surface, a young boy named Pharaoh was being groomed. And he wasn't just raised to be a king, he was raised to believe he was entirely different from everyone else, that he was literally undeniably divine.
Section 1. Pharaoh, Arrogance and Power. So how exactly do you build a god complex? Well, it starts with an environment of absolute, unquestioned obedience. Right from childhood, Pharaoh had priests and astrologers constantly whispering in his ear that his blood was divine, that the gods had specifically chosen him. His every single whim was met by rushing servants, and as he grew up, so did his horrifying cruelty. To make sure his name lived forever, he forced thousands of slaves to build these colossal architectural wonders. Picture him in his court, bathed in the flickering light of hundreds of torches, sitting on a towering golden throne, demanding that people literally prostrate themselves before him. I mean, to even speak the truth in that room was a crime punishable by death.
Moving on to Section 2, Fear and a Hope. Now, no matter how high a tyrant builds his walls, fear always finds a way inside, right? Pharaoh was absolutely terrified of losing his grip. But the real threat didn't actually come from a political rival. It came from a prophecy. Astrologers predicted that a boy born among the enslaved Bani Israel would bring about the complete downfall of his massive empire. Pharaoh's reaction to this kind of vague prophecy was just horrifying. Instead of, any kind of self-reflection, he chose the systemic slaughter of innocent newborns. He ordered his soldiers to kill every single infant boy of the Bani Israel. Mothers were forced to live in absolute heart-wrenching terror every single day. Yet, right in the midst of this unimaginable slaughter, a boy is born, Hazrat Musa, or Moses. To save his life, his terrified mother places him in a small box and literally sets it adrift on the dark waters of the Nile. And guess where the river carries him? You couldn't write this stuff. Right to the steps of Pharaoh's own palace. Found by Pharaoh's wife, Asiya, the child is adopted. So Pharaoh is literally housing, feeding, and raising the very child destined to be his undoing, right inside the halls of his own absolute power. Fast forward, decades pass. Musa grows up in the palace, eventually flees to Madian after a fatal altercation with a cruel Egyptian soldier, and later receives divine prophethood at Mount Tur. And his mission? Go back to Egypt and confront the tyrant.
Which brings us to Section 3, Battle of Truth and Falsehood.
So decades later, Musa returns, but not as an Egyptian prince, as a prophet of Allah. Look at the setup here. On one side, you have the absolute superpower of the ancient world. Pharaoh has massive armies, thousands of elite soldiers, golden chariots, and a system built entirely on absolute political terror. On the other side, Musa walks right into the throne room with absolutely nothing but a wooden staff and a message of truth. The sheer imbalance of physical might compared to the immense spiritual weight Musa carried into that room is staggering. Musa demands freedom for his people, but Pharaoh, literally laughing at the man he once raised, challenges him. So Pharaoh sets up this massive public contest against his greatest magicians. These guys throw down their ropes and sticks, creating terrifying illusions of slithering snakes. But then Musa throws down his wooden staff, and in a moment of absolute awe, it miraculously transforms into a massive, real serpent that completely swallows up all their false magic. Now, why is this so significant? Because these magicians were the absolute top experts in the world. They instantly recognized they were entirely outmatched by reality, not just another trick. They immediately fall in prostration, accepting the truth right then and there. But despite his top experts submitting, Pharaoh's pride simply wouldn't allow him to bend.
All right, Section 4, Divine Plagues on Egypt.
As Pharaoh's stubbornness grew, the divine warnings escalated into these devastating, inescapable plagues. It's like a domino effect. First, crippling droughts dried up the once fertile lands, turning them completely to dust. Then, the sky turned pitch black with swarms of locusts that devoured whatever crops were actually left. Next came massive, suffocating infestations of lice spreading absolutely everywhere, followed by hordes of frogs overwhelming the cities. And finally, the lifeblood of Egypt itself, the Nile River, turned into thick, horrifying blood. With every single devastating plague, the empire crumbled a little more. Pharaoh would actually beg Musa to pray for it to stop, promising freedom. But literally the second the punishment was lifted, his arrogance returned and the promise was broken. Every single time.
Now, Section 5. Sea Splitting and Ending.
The tension here reaches its absolute peak as Musa leads his oppressed people on a desperate midnight escape. I mean, just try to picture the sheer claustrophobia and terror of this moment. It's the dead of night. Families, children, the elderly, they're all exhausted, marching through the cold desert, and suddenly they hit a dead end, the vast, deep, uncrossable waters of the Red Sea. And then, the ground begins to shake. Behind them, torches pierce the darkness. Pharaoh, totally blinded by rage, has brought his entire mighty army. Thousands of soldiers, golden chariots, swords drawn, and they are closing in fast. The Bani Israel are completely trapped between an uncrossable ocean and the world's most terrifying military force.
With absolutely no physical escape route left, the people of Bani Israel panic. They cry out that they are surely doomed. I mean, from a human perspective, everything seems completely lost. So, what will happen now?
Well, in the face of absolute despair, panic, and a literally approaching army, Musa doesn't even flinch. He looks at the impossible odds, stands firm, and delivers this fearless, unwavering declaration of ultimate faith. He just says, "Never, my Lord is with me." And then, upon divine command, Musa strikes the sea with his staff. The moment he does, the earth trembles, the winds howl, and the massive sea splits right down the middle. We're talking huge walls of water, towering like massive mountains, standing firm on either side, exposing a completely dry path right through the heart of the sea. Bani Israel rushes forward, crossing to freedom in a literal, awe-inspiring miracle.
Pharaoh arrives at the shore. And you really have to think about the sheer irrationality of this specific moment. Any rational human would see towering mountains of water holding themselves back and instantly realize, okay, we are fighting a supreme divine force here. But Pharaoh's hubris is so deep, so completely blinding, that he orders his army of mortals to charge right into the sea path. Once Musa and his people are safely across, the massive walls of water violently crash down. In mere seconds, the greatest army on earth, the golden chariots, and the king who called himself God are entirely crushed by the unstoppable forces of nature. As the violent churning water engulfs him, dragging him down into the darkness, Pharaoh finally sees the truth he spent his entire life fighting. Stripped of his throne, his guards, and his power, the transition is heavy and it is final. He is suddenly just a helpless, suffocating mortal. He desperately utters these last words, "I believe," but it is far too late. Accepting the truth only when the consequence of your arrogance is literally suffocating you doesn't save you.
Bringing us to our final chapter, Section 6, A Sign for the World.
As Pharaoh drowned, a divine decree was made. His physical body would be preserved. Now, this wasn't to honor him, but to serve as a stark, permanent sign for all future generations. And incredibly, his mummified remains have been found and are preserved today. Just really think about this for a second. The very same man who once sat in golden halls demanding that people prostrate to him is now preserved in a glass case. It's a silent but resounding physical proof that no matter how much wealth you hoard or how vast your armies are, absolute worldly power is ultimately fleeting.
We see leaders and empires rise and fall today, right? Often drunk on their own perceived invincibility. But if a man who literally declared himself the ultimate creator was reduced to a helpless, drowning mortal and now sits silently in a museum, what does that tell us about the inevitable fate of tyranny in our own world? I'll leave you to ponder that. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next one.